We're going to shift another gear. We're going to go back to our design track. And for this, we're going to have a session called Design as a Systemic Tool for Sustainable Development. And here to moderate our fantastic panel is Jaime Moreno. He's the founder and CEO of Mormedi, and several of their products have received international design awards, the Red Dot Award, Good Design, and IF. And in 2015, Jaime also was awarded with the National Design Award. And he's bringing two other spectacular designers with him. Probably they have had some touch point with most of the people in this room's lives, because one of them is Yo Kaminagai, who's the head of design at RATP in Paris, which runs the Metro and the RER. So if you've ever been to Paris, I'm sure you've been in touch with his work. And then we have Robert Sachon, who is the chief designer at Bosch. And without further ado, Jaime, Robert, Yo, I would like to welcome you on stage.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Robert, for being here. And I would like to add a little bit of information about Joe. Joe joined RATP 40 years ago, the marketing team, and he has been evolving through his career at RATP, and now he's the head of design, taking care of the design and culture of RATP. Maybe you want to describe a little bit what you do at RATP?
Thank you for inviting me. At the beginning, I was engineer. I entered in the marketing unit, so it was a shock. And then I was prepared to lead the design management team between 1990 and 2011. To make the design management competency skill grow in the company. And after that, I've been named head of design. That means, in fact, not operational head of design, but about strategy by design, by architecture, and recently more involved in research, innovation, and digital. So this is my job.
And welcome. And Robert Sachon, well, he joined Bosch in 2005, and I think you started with Balai, which everybody knows very well, Balai. He did an amazing job there, and then he was promoted as a head of design for the Bosch. And Robert, if you want to give a brief introduction about yourself.
Yeah, I have a background as an industrial designer. I've been working all my life in brand management for different brands, as Jaime mentioned, so mostly in the field of white goods, home appliances, and yeah, it's a super interesting task.
Perfect.
I'm still performing.
So we have here, I mean, on one hand, somebody who is coming from public transportation, and one of the biggest operators in the underground, overground, and on the other hand, I mean, a market leader in home appliances. And today we want to talk about sustainability, and what I would like to ask you first, from your different perspectives, in terms of design, how do you see sustainability in your company?
If I begin, for me, in fact, there are two levels. First, it's not about design. It's about the fact that public transportation creates sustainability in general. But it's not so easy to do because we have to change all the solutions, improve them. Then there is a second level, which is design. Design, by all the disciplines in design, have to work on making the solutions better and also making the questions better. And it's not easy. What is not easy is that it relies on the understanding of design by the other disciplines, the top management, the strategists, the operational people. I think they understand design through the results, because as you said, I've been involved in many results, like not only the metro and the RER, but also the tram. You know that there was a tram boom in France during the 30 last years, and the tram in Paris was really a discovery for many citizens. So I was very proud of having managed that. But in fact, behind the results, there are also the strategies. There was a French guy called Jean-Marie Floch, a semiologist, who was saying, behind the science, the strategies. So the strategies are a bit hidden, and this is not easy to transmit from a generation to a generation, and this is what about we are caring. It's the most important for sustainability.
Thank you, Joe. And Robert, from your perspective, I mean, what has changed in the last 5 years, and how do you see the near future at Bosch in terms of sustainability? If you can give us a big picture.
Yeah, so for Bosch, of course, sustainability is a huge topic. I think last year we declared as a company that we are carbon neutral in operations. So we were not talking about 2030, we were talking about last year. But sustainability has an even longer history inside Bosch. So like 10, 12 years ago, this has been really driving the whole industry of white goods, where many of the household appliance manufacturers have been walking their talk, doing their homework, reducing the energy consumption, the water consumption of home appliances up to 75%. And back then this was really working perfectly, because it was saving the world on the one hand side to a certain aspect, and on the other hand side it was saving the money in the pockets of the consumers. But a decade later, I think sustainability is much more than efficiency, so this will play a super important role in the strategy of our company. But for us, it will go in a completely different direction. So saving another liter of water in your washing machine will become super complex, and it will be getting close to the limits of what's physically possible. So the whole topic of sustainability will switch a little bit away from the topic of efficiency and coming more from a linear to a circular economy. That means reducing the amount of renewable materials, reducing the carbon footprint, not only in production, but also in the usage phase, and even after the usage phase. And of course, combined with a high focus on recyclability and reuse of the products.
Thank you. You have been both involved in the design discipline for, I would say, more than 2 decades, no? And Joe, more than that. What do you think is the role of design, and how designers have been evolving in the last years, and how do you see the role in the near future?
It's still difficult, because even if we get some results which can be published, the upgrade is always needed, and the public and the decision makers are always understanding design through a strange way, through the results, and so through the solutions, and not as a discipline which helps them to write the strategies. So we have some successes, of course, but what is very important is about public transportation, to say that I think that you all in the public, in the audience, you think about the objects. So that means the vehicles, or a ticket, or a logo, or a sign. But in fact, the customer experience is in places, and also deals with physical and digital. So we have to refocus the design, people responsible in design have to refocus the strategies on these objects, which are the places. You know, when you travel from one place to another, while you are in a bus, while you are in the metro, the work is done. Of course, perhaps it's not as comfortable as you want. Perhaps you are in a peak hour, and so yeah, it's not comfortable. But in fact, in the changes, in the interchanges, when you change from one mode to one mode, you have to work. So this is not well done yet. And if you have to cope with the digital apps which don't transmit all the networks you need in your city, you have to jump from one app to another one, and you have to compare what is on your smartphone and what is in the reality. So it is not natively designed. So these are two new stakes, the places and the continuity between digital and physical, which are very important to create attractivity for public transport. And creating attractivity for public transport more and more, it is towards sustainability for the cities.
Thank you, Joe. Robert?
Yeah, I think much has been talked in the design world about the role of design, about the Danish design ladder, which describes the maturity level of designers from being mere form givers over designers' process and designer strategy. There have been large corporations appointing chief design officers, design thinking, the way designers classically approach design innovation topics have become more popular. If you look about the responsibility of designers, that's much more than simply product design. If you think about the whole UI, UX responsibility. So there has been much movement, yes. On the other hand, I think it's a long way to go from being seen as a hairdresser to really having a seat on the table. So whenever we as designers were claiming a seat on the table in our company, our CMO usually said, tell us how to run the business and we will gladly invite you to the table. So this shows that you somehow have to bring something to the table as well. And with this VUCA world outside, so you know, which is very complex, unpredictable, uncertain, it's becoming more and more difficult to predict what's the proper way to run a business, and that's exactly where designers come into play. I think company leaders are longing for foresight, they are longing for long-term visions, they are longing for consumer-centric innovations, and I think design has really the power to deliver all that, to make those visions, to visualize them and to make them tangible as well.
Thank you.
So as long as we deliver, I think we are on a good track. And I think especially the topic of sustainability might have the potential to be a catalyst for the perception of design inside companies, because you really have to rethink everything you do, and I think designers are very well prepared for doing so.
And do you think we're elevating our position in the corporations?
I would say yes, but it's not like you get the position first and then you're starting to work. So you have to start to work, you have to bring something to the table, and then at the end you will get the position and the acknowledgement as well, but I think that's not all. Titles are nothing.
It's not an increase of the upgrading of the level, but it's an expansion, in fact. Because when I began working about design management, my position was understood as product design management. Furniture, materials, and then science, and then spaces, and then art. And so, as for design in general, the field of competency of design has increased, in fact. And now, design should be used for many, many domains, even in shaping organizations, shaping governances, shaping processes, and this is not yet understood. By chance, some designers are invited to participate to some works like that. There are some public corporations, I'm speaking about France, like perhaps the city of Saint-Étienne or city of Lille, which are really involved in design. They know that the design managers there can work not only on science or projects, but it's not the general case. So in big corporations like mine, we have always to sell new ideas, to sell new messages, to make us understood as good contributors to a strategy. It's not easy to do that because, no, for me it's lasting for now 3 or 4 decades, and I'm still thinking that I have to win the confidence, the full confidence of all all the board. It's not easy to do that.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, there's an increasing complexity, and this is requiring, as you were mentioning before, Joe, that we need to design at a system level. We cannot design anymore in pieces or in competences. No? If we look at a brand, we need to understand all the touch points, how a user is going to interact with your company, and it's going to interact with intangible assets, with tangible assets, with digital assets, and this increase in complexity requires designing with a systematic perspective. No? What do you think about this?
I want to say something about the context, because I will not speak about design. Perhaps it's a bit publicity for my company, but we have rewritten our raison d'être, so our driving purpose. And what's written, if you search that, it's also in English on the web, RATP, driving purpose. We say that our will is to contribute to a better living city. So when we say that as a slogan, it means that we are not only about mobility, we are not only about transport, but mobility is used to improve the city's life. And so understanding the city and the phenomena which are crossing the city is very important for us. So it's not about designing vehicles, bus stops, signage. Of course it's that, but also including that in a global place where there are other stakeholders like the city authorities and the shopkeepers and the shopping centers, who are all involved in having a well-circulating city. So this complexity is a form of culture, and this culture is really difficult to keep, in fact, because if people who are in charge of that go away, to recreate the skills, it's really difficult. But in fact, having written this driving purpose, we hope that it is written in the rock now, that the complexity of the situation is written in the rock, and that all the disciplines of the company will work for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked about the VUCA world outside, and I think the more complex the world outside is getting, the more it's important to get designers into play, because design has been really becoming a very holistic discipline, which is not only about aesthetics, you know. And I think designers have a talent to express complexity in a more simpler way. And so company leaders are really looking for ways how to deal with the whole complexity. So who tells them how mega trends will affect the life of consumers tomorrow? What are the demands of the consumers tomorrow? How to incorporate all the technological trends, AI, digitalization, voice control, whatever, how to incorporate social trends like the aging society. And so in our company, we have established a strategic tool that we call a vision range. So that's pretty much a show car showing the direction where we want to go in terms of design, in terms of innovation, in terms of brand language and so on. And incorporating all those aspects, but making them really tangible for the decision makers in our company. And that's a super helpful tool. Whenever we divide the decision makers, they're glad to come, and very often they understand what they never managed to understand before.
And how do you see the future of the smart home?
So the future of the smart home will be pretty much incorporating all of that in the right mix. But we really look at it from consumer segments that we want to address with the different brands. But it will be very much experience driven. So it's not only aesthetical design. We have to incorporate aesthetical trends, of course, like the open space, living areas, the merge of the living room and the kitchen, aesthetical mega trends like seamless, like ever-growing number of integration in kitchen. And we have to incorporate all that into those visions to make it tangible and to describe a way and to have a clear picture where we want to go.
And Joe, how do you see the future of mobility in a city like Paris?
You know all that there is a new speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour in Paris, global Paris. And there will be a no-car zone in the 6 central districts in the second part of 2022. That means that the car for these downtowns will be perhaps banned, but in fact we have not to understand that through a bad way. Of course, for people who are living there, they can have a car parked in their own parking, they can go out of the zone, they can enter. But in fact that means that for the dense cities, the pandemic has accelerated the transformation, but really the share of the public realm is really a new issue. And in that situation, creating the solutions like the tramways which bring transport and also greening with the grass, or bus stations which are not only transport hubs but also places for retail. All these ways are really important to make transportation a long-lasting solution. So in the future, of course, we can speak about autonomy of the vehicles, about digitalization of the solution. You know all perhaps the word MaaS, mobility as a service, which must arrive on our smartphones as a portal, including all the solutions, the modes in a city. Of course, we have to deal with the energy saving for all the vehicles. But in fact, the main idea is to keep the way that the public transport is a noble solution for people. you know perhaps that Mrs. Thatcher has said, I think 40 years before, a woman who uses a bus at 40 years old has missed her life. It's written in Wikipedia. So we want to go against that, and we want to maintain all the transportation modes as a good way to live in a city.
Okay, I think we need to start dancing, but and Robert, once you have achieved these goals in terms of sustainability, like carbon fiber, emission, recycling materials, what's next?
So there's always a next. I think you have tackling this problem of sustainability is really one of the wicked problems. So you will never find the solution. So I think that's also a good way to approach it from a design perspective, because the deeper you look inside a problem, into a wicked problem, you will find out that it's somehow contradictory. You may think it's as easy as replacing materials with recycled ones, but then replacing them, you will figure out, oh, you cannot recycle them twice. So this is really a tough one, and I think those wicked problems require rather looking into interventions, trying out something, and then finding the perfect one for all solution. You will never reach that point. So I think wherever you work, you have to dig a little bit deeper. You have to understand where you're coming from, where you can create the most impact, and then try to apply it.
Perfect. Are there any questions from the audience that you would like to ask the panelists?
During that moment, I would like to add one sentence, is that design is for people, in fact. Design is to make people live better and not driven only by technology. And in such a summit like here, South Summit, technology is everywhere. So we can imagine that the solutions are everywhere. But are they affordable? Are they user-oriented? Really? I was explaining you an example. It will speak to everybody, I think. You call an Uber arriving at Madrid Barajas, and you are waiting your Uber. You receive the number of plate. It's written, it's a Volkswagen Passat black one, and you have 30 people searching their car among 30 black cars. So this is not a good use of technology. The system has not been imagined to make that moment easy, especially because you are very tired arriving from very far. So this is it means that you have to do a change of mindset, and design is there for that.
Thank you, Joe. And just a last comment
There
before
was
we...
a question
Oh.
from the audience, I think, from here. You still want to? Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. But the microphone seems to be not working anyhow. We will answer your question personally then. Okay.
I'm very sorry, but my German time is coming out, so I'm going to be the bad guy on stage. That's fine. I would like to say thank you very much for this panel. Can we have a round of applause for our wonderful speakers?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Apologies
Thank
for
you.
taking over so violently. But I can absolutely relate with this problem of looking for my Uber, or here in Spain, my Cabify among like the 20 other cars. Sometimes it's even a difficulty to find like where is the pickup point at the airport. I don't know if you can relate.